Hi everyone, Monica Moore here, and this episode of Ask Monica is about one of the most common questions that I get, and that's about insulin resistance. What is insulin resistance? How does it affect me? And so in this first installment of the insulin resistance series, we're going to just basically talk about what it is. So insulin is a storage hormone. Its whole goal is to store fat, which sounds like awful, but we do need it, and we certainly did a long time ago when food was scarce. Those who had excess insulin were able to store fat and go longer in between meals. Well, now we have lots of processed food's readily available, so it doesn't work so well, but it's an evolutionary adaptation that was necessary then, and we probably are, some of us are fighting now. But let's talk about, take a little closer look about insulin and insulin resistance. We're gonna use this board here. And so this red outline is the cell, and these black keyholes are receptors for glucose, and the blue is glucose, and then these green keys are insulin. So insulin is the key that allows glucose to enter into the cell. And so what it does is two things. It takes the glucose out of the bloodstream, where too much glucose in the bloodstream can be dangerous, as we know from people with diabetes. It really damages the vessels where it's sitting in, and it gives the cell the energy that it needs in order to do regular body functions. Okay, so that's a normal insulin. So let's look then at insulin resistance. So somebody eats a meal and they have a lot of glucose here that's sitting outside the cell. So that's normal. But what happens is this cell becomes resistant to insulin. So the insulin is there, it's present. Actually, there's a hyperinsulinemia. So if I could draw properly, I'd make these keys even bigger and more of them. But unfortunately, maybe because these keys are bigger, they're unable to fit in the keyhole. They're unable to allow the glucose to get into the cell. So now we have glucose that's not into the cell, so the cell is unable to use it for energy, and we have an excess of glucose and insulin outside the cell, where it damages that area, because that area of the cell, let's say it's a blood vessel, is not equipped to handle large amounts of glucose over time. And so it ends up damaging the cell walls, and that's why those who are diabetic end up having so many systemic issues. So what do we do for insulin resistance? Well, we do everything that we can to make you more sensitive to insulin. And there are a bunch of ways to do that, which is why we're gonna make this a series. But if I can give you any idea of what to do right now, it is movement or exercise. Skeletal muscle has cells that are the greatest puller outers of glucose. So it pulls glucose out of the bloodstream and into the cell. So by innervating skeletal muscle through movement exercise, by making skeletal muscle bigger through strength training, that is the greatest insulin sensitizing strategy that we have, even if that exercise doesn't result in weight loss. And we'll certainly talk about weight and weight loss and how it correlates with insulin resistance. So if there's anything that I want to leave you with today, first of all, it's that if you have insulin resistance, it's not your fault. Secondly, there's no quote unquote treatment for insulin resistance, but certainly it can be managed. I have insulin resistance, so I'm passionate about this. And thirdly, if there's anything that you can do, you've been diagnosed with this and there's anything that you want to do right away, I recommend exercise. It does not need to be a formal class. Any kind of movement, anything to get those skeletal muscles moving, growing, innervated, and being active can really help with this. So I hope this is helpful. Look forward to giving you some more strategies in the upcoming series. Thanks so much.